He says the culture of power hasn't changed. My guest tonight is an activist who says without grasping the essence of power, self-perception and the culture of citizenship will remain weak. He says social change is traumatic, especially for those with a vested interest in the status quo. How can we tip the balance of power in favor of the people? Yao, power relations, one of your many interests. Why?
Well, because really, whatever the values we have, whatever we aspire to, I mean, social organization, society, a key part of how it is organized is determined by power. No matter how it's dressed up. I mean, we may have all kinds of ways in which power is disguised. It may be disguised by, say, an insistence on respect for status, you know, knowing your place in society, you know, proverbs like all fingers are not equal and so on. But really, at the end of the day, access to the means of livelihood, the quality of life, without attention to power, even the richest countries, you find extremities of wealth and extremities of poverty. The evidence is around us.
But power stays with, we bring people into political office and we give them that power.
That's too narrow a definition of power. I mean, in the home, power relations exist between parents and children. Power relations exist between spouses. Okay, in the classroom, there are power relations between pupils and teachers.
So tell me, what kind of power relation do you think augurs for the advancement of the people and society at large?
Well, I think talking about the Ghanaian context, there are two key dimensions of this. The power relations within the society, particularly in the sphere of, say, the political economy, okay?
Yes,
the control and allocation of resources. And also the relations between our country and the larger world. And I would say in this context, between the African continent, you know, and the larger world.
But you have no power. Africa is a continent that is marginalized. You have no power at all.
We have a perception of ourselves, or some people, particularly our political leaders, present themselves as people who are beholden to others. You see, but these things are also rooted in how you see the world, whether you accept what exists as what ought to be, whether where you are in the pecking order, you are comfortable with it, okay, and you think that things could be better, and also really ultimately, if you are a political leader, what your vision of society.
So you're concerned with the balance of power as it exists currently between, for example, third world leaders and leaders in Europe and America?
Third world countries, yeah, and you know the most advanced countries.
They're much more advanced. They have a basis for it.
Well, I don't know about, say, that being the simple basis for power. Because if you look at the global economy, really it's an interlocking system, and the smallest country has some role to play in it.
Really, Banana Republic, little country like this. Look at the GDP of a country like us, and you want to play global politics and think that they will take you seriously.
Why do you think, for example, that, say, President Kufuor and 4 other African leaders were summoned to a meeting by Tony Blair recently? Because he knows that at the end of the day, all these so-called banana republics, cocoa republics, oil republics add up to a certain weight.
Do you believe that? Do you really think the leader of a Western country, reasonably advanced, generally thinks that leaders of small African countries have a major role to play in world politics?
Well, some may feel that by simply snapping their fingers, they'll turn up and people will take orders. But a continent which has the largest numbers of members in all the key international institutions, I'm talking about Africa, 54 members. In the UN, that's the largest bloc, okay, where it's 1 vote per country. In the World Trade Organization, okay, where it's a consensus basis for taking decisions. If this continent decides as a bloc that we don't want this, in that international arena, GDP doesn't count, numbers count.
As a bloc?
As a bloc.
So you see, you qualified.
No, absolutely.
But the reality of our situation is Africa is 54 independent countries. They are not a bloc.
But that is part of the challenge, because we share many things in common. Okay, we share a certain history, we share structures of economy, we share common situations of our people, we share certain location in the international economy, which if it does not change, we are going nowhere.
And we also share certain pettiness to remain sovereign.
Well, I no, sovereignty is not, say, a block to working together.
Yeah, let's look at power, at the whole concept of power, say within our own, like the Ghanaian society. I mean, the exercise of power is traditionally, if I may say so, authoritarian, isn't it?
Very authoritarian, very authoritarian. I mean, and I think that is also, and of course, these things settle and people accept it. And women are treated in an extremely authoritarian way by men, you know, and men joke about it, you know. I mean, every adult presumes to give an errand child a knock, you know, without reference to the parents, and the parents think it's okay, you know. And at times, terrible brutalities are inflicted on kids. Those of us who went to school in the days of caning, I mean, a whole range of undefined things provided some fairly sadistic teachers an opportunity, you know, to whip the hell out of kids.
Translate that into politics.
Well, at the level of national politics, let's look at what our history has been, okay? The authoritarianism of traditional rule, okay? There's a lot of discussion about, say, democratic elements in, you know, in traditional rule and chieftaincy and so on. But quite frankly,
it's not democratic.
It can't be. Any system of rule based on the accident of blood cannot be democratic.
No.
Because the majority of people are excluded from actually occupying the highest office.
And that is the case with chieftaincy, that people become chiefs because they belong to a family, to a lineage.
The accident of blood. You see, and
you say that is not democratic.
It can't be. I mean, because, I mean, I'm not saying that it doesn't have some leeway in it. Yes. But I think, I mean, the concept of democracy has some essential attributes. I mean, and I think that if we come to look at our constitution, which is founded on citizenship, a republican constitution is founded on the equality of everybody, okay? The legal and sovereign equality of citizens.
Yeah.
I mean, some